Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the ServiceMonster podcast. My name is Joe Kowalski, and I am your host. Today, we're going to be talking about a handful of things. There's been a lot that's been going on over the last week. And so I don't know if we have a specific focus. We're kind of bouncing around quite a bit. But before we get to any of that, some housekeeping. Adam, what do we have for today?
Well, like we mentioned before, every podcast up until it arrives, the kind of shout out to for the webinar. August 15th. You want to kind of do your little...
August 15th, yeah. So join us August 15th, 5 o'clock Pacific time, where we will be going for about an hour.
Yep.
And then questions usually make us there hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes, but obviously you don't have to hang through that. We're going to be talking about a handful of new features that are coming out that are really, really big. The new schedule is a big one. Trial accounts for new prospects or leads is a big one. We've got, we just have so much. The new app is coming out. There's a new product core. So join us. And there's a website, and we've got a link below, but servicemonster.net/webinar, and that's how you register. You better get on it because we're almost halfway through registration for how many seats we have. Right. The tech that we've got limits us to around 250, and we'll be able to turn that up if we need to. But the last time we did this, we had about 270 people show up. This is about 2 years ago, because, we usually drop value bombs. That's all we do. Right. So I think people are interesting that it's they show up in droves when we actually do an actual pitch where all we do is talk about ServiceMonster. So chance to win prizes and, take away some merchandise and all that stuff. So join us again, August 15th, 5 o'clock p.m., ServiceMonster webinar. Go register at servicemonster.net/webinar.
We'll have that link on all of the...
Everywhere.
Yep. Also wanted to mention again, up until we arrive, the huge convention, August 8th and 9th. So any pressure washers that are going to be there, be on the lookout for us.
Please stop by the booth and say hi to Annette and Skylar. They're going to be over there hanging out and showing all the goodies. And and they'll get you hooked up right there with the free trial.
Yep.
So you just walk up to the booth and say, hook me up, hand them your phone, and then, you'll have it. It's just that fast. So, and then you'll be able to play with it and talk to them about it and all that kind of stuff. So, go see them at the booth. After the webinar, too, we're doing the experience. Yep. That's September something, right? The beginning of September.
Like a month later.
Right. Yep. So, come see us.
Outside of that, just a really quick kind of a tidbit on the Zapier REST hooks that we talked about last podcast. You uploaded some documentation on the SMUG. It's the nerd documentation, as you said, but that is available there. So if anyone is curious.
Yeah, and this isn't for Zapier.
Yep.
Just so we're clear. In order to use Zapier's triggers, you need to have REST hooks available on your API pipeline, which we now have. So webhooks, REST hooks, whatever you call them, the REST hook is the specific specification that we used. And so, we adhere to that. That's what Zapier was looking for. That's what we were doing anyway. And so all of those events you can hook up to Zapier, you can actually, as an API programmer, hook them up on your own as long as you have a server with an endpoint to receive the call when our servers make that trigger notice. Then you should be good to go. So you can do crazy stuff with that, or you could just make it easy on yourself and use Zapier too. Even programmatically, that's just a better option. So, but yeah, definitely check out that docs if you were kind of hungry to dive in and hook stuff up. And we've got tons of endpoints on there and ways to subscribe and all that kind of stuff. So it's on SMUG. You can go check that out there. Scroll around. It's a Word document. So
yeah, we also have a page on our help site.
Did you move the content?
We'll have that content out.
Okay,
time
good. Yeah, that's great. Then it doesn't have to be a Word doc, and we can share it.
The other big thing is we had talked about a release last podcast. It got delayed just a tiny bit.
Yep.
So we do apologize.
Hoping for Monday or Tuesday.
Yep. And so just based on when the podcast is released, it should be basically right before this comes out.
Right. So by the time you listen to it, you should already have it.
Right.
And I'm pushing hard on these deadlines because, August 1st is our internal to make sure everything that we want done for the webinar is done. And, our drop dead date is when boots hit the ground for the huge convention. So there's no reason why we shouldn't make those dates, but we did slow the schedule down a little bit because the new QA guy, Greg, is just so good at finding all the little nooks and crannies.
Oh yeah, he's been doing a great job.
Now, that's not to say that it's going to be 100% bug-free the second we release it, right? We've talked about this before, how data in the wild can play an interesting role on outlying events. And so give us a few days after we get it out, but we're going to be betaing it first, inviting a few people. The schedule next week won't be available to everybody. We're going to be opening it up to people to take a look at. So if you're interested in that, leave a link leave a comment below on any platform that you want. We're monitoring everything, or send us an email at support@servicemonster.net, or hit me up on all the social media platforms like, Joe, get me into the schedule beta. We know it doesn't affect data at all, so it's just visual stuff that we'll be fixing, but it's incredible. I cannot wait. But yeah, next week we'll have 5, 10, 20 people banging on it just to make sure that everything looks good. And then we'll open it up as an opt-in. So if you're worried, because you live on the schedule all day long, right? So if you're worried about, oh my gosh, I'm going to log in one day and the schedule is going to be completely different and I won't know how to do my job, you will have to, if you're using ServiceMonster currently, you'll have to say, let me see the new schedule,
right, and
then use it. And then if you have an issue or you can't figure out how to do something, or you get a bunch of phone calls in and you don't have to figure it out on the fly, then you can bounce back to the old one easy enough. So I would encourage you to take a look, leave some comments, let us know that you want to participate, and we'll get that out next week.
Perfect. Some other kind of major features kind of going out, just so everyone's aware. The completion wizard for 6, that is going to be...
We're not even talking about that as part of our thing, and it's huge.
I know, it's huge. It's a feature that was all on 5, and then when 6 was built, it kind of left it a little bit separated. And so we kind of take a look at that and you know what, that's actually something that the office staff really, really want. And so we're putting that together. A brand new designed screen. There's actually an improvement coming from the visual side to the quick add as well, based on that. And so
that was driven by you.
That was driven by me.
That's right.
Yes.
And then my son implemented it. It looks awesome.
It really does. It is. It's a great improvement. And we'll have a video out for all of our current users who are already aware of what the features do, but kind of walk through the completion wizard from start to finish.
Right.
Immediately on release for all of you guys on that, and then we'll also have something on the help site shortly thereafter.
Yeah, that's great. That's a big one. Yeah, it's it really helps you, and the new design compared to what we had in 5 is just great.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a feature that we had been missing, because you can do all the pieces, but you have to think.
Right.
What do I need to do? Oh, payment. Oh, no, invoice. Okay, the invoice first. Now the payment. Now commissions, were they done right? You have to go hunt and pack. This is all one fell swoop. So converting to an invoice, making sure your totals are out, make sure your taxes are good. That's fine. Okay, payments. Did the commissions happen properly? Yep. Inventory control is coming out next week too, which is another thing we're not talking about. Yep. Really, that's another huge feature, and that can be part of your process overall too. Did your inventory adjust properly, and commissions, all that stuff. So yeah, fun with the completion wizard.
Yeah. And so, like you said, the inventory was the other big one. So we got that covered. And then also there are some bug fixes,
right,
just kind of things like that.
Handful of trackers, 20, 30, 40, whatever they are. Yep.
So from there, kind of moving into SMUG, I wanted to start with kind of continuing on from the release structure. You created kind of a survey about kind of a major thing that's going to be coming out. Online order approval. Yeah.
So one thing I like about this podcast is there's only a core group of people that really pay attention to it on a regular basis. So when I say soft release stuff, I know that it's not going to be picked up in the masses. So this is a feature we're going to surprise people with at the webinar. Unless you're listening now. Surprise. It's the order approval process. Right. So the ability to, just like what you can do now with invoices, send out an email or a text that has a link that the user can click on to submit payment. We're going to be creating a link that will allow you to send a text or an email for an estimate or a work order that will allow your client to approve the order. And this is step one. So this isn't packages, right? This isn't 3 of them and they choose one, although we'll be heading in that direction. And based off of the speed at which we want to get this first version out and the feedback we got from SMUG, it looks like initials are going to be just fine for a first release.
Yep.
And people are hoping for signature and deposit and that kind of stuff. And those are all things that we can add later, that you can add to your configuration, like our lead capture forms. But for this first go around, I just want to get something out because I know it's going to save a ton of people a ton of time. If you're grumbling because that other feature needed to be signature or deposit for you, or you couldn't use it, well, just know that everything moves in increments here, right? So we get the first one out, we're that much closer to getting those features in, but we got to start somewhere. So we could hold back the entire release on approval and not do any of it until everything is done. But for the people who will benefit out of just the initials, why not get it out? Why not get it working? Why not make sure the tech is good? The linking works, right? Everything, the users are having good experiences. Browser's not doing anything funny. It's good on mobile. Like all these things we have to check off. So we'll get it out. We'll get it out in this iteration, and then there'll be changes coming down the road depending on how much friction we cause with people who are like, yeah, I'd love to use it, but I can't quite use it yet because whatever, right?
I think the really nice thing, too, that I wanted to really showcase this for is any of our listeners who are current ServiceMonster users. If you are not in SMUG, if you're not in the Facebook group, and you feel like, oh, I really wish I could have had some input on that.
Yep.
This is kind of your...
Get in there.
Let
us know.
Let us know. Exactly.
Support at ServiceMonster.net, or hit me up on social media, or hit us up on our pages, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, comments here, like whatever, like let me into SMUG. Now that is to say that we're not going to let everybody in.
We want to make sure that you guys are versed on the software. It's not meant to be a support channel.
Right. It's not a day 2 thing, right? So you're not going to sign up with ServiceMonster on day 1 and get invited to SMUG on day 2. We want to make sure that you use it for a little bit first. Because like Adam said, if you don't want to get supported, come there and ask a question. That's a support question, not a feature question, not a business question, not a bug report, but just how do I do this? Especially if we have stuff on the website, like call, email, go look at the help manual, because I'll let that shit sit for 2 days just to make the point. This is not a support channel. If you want support quickly, you got to do the email, got to go through our normal channels, right? And it says it right there in the description too. This is not a support channel. So, reach out to me if you never really want to be supported in I need to get this thing done right away. Usually I'll hand it off to team members during business hours, but I get it all the time at night. Like, hey, Joe, I need to know how to do this thing. I'm like, dude, it's 9:30 and I'm not going to teach you how to do it. Like, that's not my MO. That's not what I do. So I'll have my support staff call you in the morning. Right. So again, reach out, do that. And I'll miss it too. I'll say that. I'll have my support staff reach out, and I may send out a message right then, but then I won't follow up with it, which means it could go through the cracks. So slip through the cracks. So again, if you don't want to get supported, rely on me. Otherwise, rely on our amazing staff and systems. And if you send the email to support, then people are making sure that stuff is getting done.
Exactly.
Right.
Kind of a nice little segue from there too is one of the other big reasons why I want our users to be in SMUG, as long as they understand that, is this next post from Toby. I love the collaboration when those posts happen.
So good.
And Toby was asking there's actually a couple of things to mention here. First, he was asking about some different apps that the users use for kind of various other sections of their business. And he also mentioned he's trying to get off the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
good for you, Toby.
Yeah, exactly.
And welcome to SMUG, by the way.
A whole bunch of people chimed in. Tim was one. I'll just list a couple of the apps that were mentioned, like Google Forms for kind of like repair work, things like that. Zoho Survey, Zoho Desk were kind of like on the support side, so they could have like an internal support rather than just having like a generic email. Internal communication with Slack or text-free or so on. All of these things that were mentioned that they use to kind of enhance their business. And also, they've mentioned the Ask ServiceMonster videos that you have done about how to get off the truck.
Yeah, there's about 80 of those Ask videos in there. And, and we could have just kept doing them, But the thing is there's only so many topics that you can cover if you're not talking about the technical aspects of the cleaning, right? And we covered almost all of them. And I hate repeating myself. So that was that show. Like, list is done, and that a lot of people I'll see on bulletin boards questions, or people send me questions. At this point now, we have a video for almost every business question. So lots of really good stuff there, and none of it really goes out of content. Goes out of flavor. I even handed somebody our Facebook Ads Manager video the other day, and absolutely loved it. Now, is every single button still in the same place because that video was done like 3 years ago? No, but it's pretty darn close. They haven't made a huge amount of changes to generally how you do things, and the audience methodology and the naming conventions. They were all still highly relevant. So yeah, it's a really good source if you guys are, looking to get off the truck, if you guys are looking to improve your business aspects and you're not familiar with those videos, like, go to our YouTube channel and check them out. They're really good stuff.
The other really great thing that came from this is, and again, guys, if you're not in SMUG, you really should be if you're a user. A couple people offered to just, hey, reach out. Like, I'll give you some things, because all of our users went through these similar things.
Yep.
And so everyone wants to help each other. And it's really kind of the culture that we want to cultivate.
Especially in an environment like SMUG, right?
Yep.
And how our group is different than other groups is I'm a Nazi moderator.
Nothing for you.
Like, I will not put up with bullshit. Now, that being said, I'm not going to take down criticism. I'm not going to take down complaints. I'm not going to take down those kinds of things because I want people to be heard. And we'll talk about it. And I'll be super frank. Like, and most of the time I agree with people, but sometimes I don't. And we'll have the discussion and I'll lay out why. And so the people in there are higher caliber, or they're well behaved, right? Because a lot of these guys are just they have fun. They're keyboard warriors, or they like to troll it up a little bit, probably more than the general population. But none of that shit happens on SMUG. So never be afraid to ask a question, or I'm a newbie and I need help. Like, it's a really good environment. I would say, from that point of view, the only other group that's as well moderated and well behaved is probably Mason's groups, right? The groups that he was part of creating, because he's big on the no cussing. I'm not, I don't care so much about that, obviously, but he keeps people under control when people start bashing or making inflammatory comments or things that just aren't helpful. Right. So same thing there. So, yeah. So I know a lot of people are turned off by the groups because they go to a thing like CCP or whatever, where everybody's just kind of like dogging it out. And that's not us. That's not what we do. So, yep. And there's a place for that, too. It's called a playground. CCP is a playground, 100%. Right. It's not the real, but there's great conversations there, too, if you can deal with all the other bullshit.
It's just like the internet overall.
Seriously.
You got to find the spots that are useful and helpful, and then if you like trolling, just go find the troll spots.
Right, or playing, or, whatever. Yeah. Right.
The next little bit is Sam had asked a question about having a couple of our reports have some additional kind of filtering on them.
And then Brenda was like, whoop, whoop, whoop.
Yep. She knocked them out basically over maybe 2 day period.
Yeah.
And so the orders by sales rep report and what was the other one? The sales rep the orders by sales rep and invoices by sales rep. Sorry. Those were the two reports. She added the a commercial filtering if you want that commercial versus residential, and whether or not it's paid. So you can easily see that.
Very cool.
We also had some great feature requests. I didn't put them in here because I knew we were going to be going through a lot. But Alan, Tim, everyone else who had some great feature requests, note that we have those noted. We'll definitely discuss them.
They're in Tracker. They'll get. You've heard me talk about a little bit about how we're changing the way our system of trackers and prioritization happens. We're having these little physical cards. So just so you're up on the process, as we're kind of sorting out how to push these through. New stuff will end up being new cards that get presented to the group, and then the group as a group will categorize them based off stakeholder interests, right? So if support says, oh God, yes, we need that feature because we talk about that all the time, it's a friction point for us, then that obviously gets escalated. Or if support says, I get too many phone calls about this issue, we need to clean this up, I agree, and they push it, then it'll happen in a sooner sprint rather than sitting in the backlog waiting for its turn to be prioritized. And then there are bugs like that. If you listen to last week's show, I talked about prioritizing stuff like if you have a big effort but a small ROI, like sometimes we see feature requests turn into, like there's 4 people who will use it and it's going to take a dev 40 hours. Sorry, I'm not spending the money on it. Not yet. Not until that thing becomes the highest priority, which means all of the big bigs and little bigs need to be done first, right? Low effort, high ROI, high effort, high ROI. So if I have a high effort and a low ROI, man, those go to the bottom of the list. And the only way that they move up is if our customer base proves to us that it should be a big ROI, which means a lot of people need to talk about it, get behind it, and so forth. Another reason why SMUG is good, because if you have this feature that you think is like, oh my God, they got to have this because they'll make $1 billion, or they got to have this or I'm going away, then you put it in there and you see how much support you get. Sometimes you'll get a handful of people and I'll be like, damn, they made me do it. There it is. But most of the time, the weird fringe cases pop out as weird fringe cases. People are like, I do this a different way, or yeah, that's not really the way I would use it, right? And so then those get logged, they get talked about, and then they end up in a backlog somewhere.
Yep. Oh man. So really the important thing, just keep those feature requests coming.
That's right.
That's it.
Please.
Yeah, it's kind of the deep dive, kind of moving on. Thanks as always to our SMUG users. We had a blog post that was kind of going by state cleaning industry statistics. I hate saying that word so much.
Average invoice
growth
by
rate.
State.
Yep, by state.
And the growth year over year from 2017 to 2018, but not growth of revenue. What I wanted to show here was increase in average invoice.
Right.
I wanted to kind of demonstrate like raising your prices is not catastrophic, because that's obviously you're doing more work and or you're charging more, right? In both cases are going to help increase your average invoice. And we saw, was it like 80%, 85% of the states had decent increases. We had 2 states, Ohio and Maryland, that had like 20+% increase in their average. I don't know what the hell you guys are doing in there, but good on you. Well done. And those aren't small sample groups either. I think Ohio had like 27,000 invoices sampled from, and Maryland was 50,000, or the reverse, other way around. Probably the other way around based off the state size, right?
Most likely.
Yeah. Maryland 27,000 and Ohio had something like 50,000 invoices. And it wasn't those statistics. We take a lot of care to get as close as we can to the truth of the data. And some people will be like, well, did you separate commercial? Like, oh, you know what? I only do tile, right? Am I going to look, this is a metric. This is a barometer. This is to look at to see how is my company holding up against other companies, specifically ServiceMonster companies, and the average invoice in my area. Do I stand out? Am I an outlier on the low side or an outlier on the high side, or am I right in average? And I would encourage you guys to move slightly north of that average if you're not there already. So take a look at that and go, okay, well, how can I increase my average invoices? Because my margins are going to be better, my business is going to be healthier, and so on. And so the way we comprise that data, so first of all, you have to understand ServiceMonster processed $500 million in invoices in 2018. $500 million. It's like 507 million. So first of all, that number, when we saw that number, it was so good. So good. And not every single one of those data points made it in. because what we did is we took all of the clients who had been with us for both 2017 and 2018. So that had to be true, so that those average invoices made sense. And then because we're looking specifically at cleaning invoices, we removed any outliers. So we removed any invoices that were below $50, so $0 invoices or friends of a family for $20 or whatever. Those are out. Minimum charge, guys, come on. And then if it was over 1,500 or 2,500, I don't remember what the metric was. So over 2,500, and obviously there you're moving into restoration projects, right? You're moving into, it's not a cleaning project if you're charging $2,500. I know some of those pressure washing gigs can get pretty substantial, $1,000, $1,500, especially if you're doing a handful of outer surfaces over the course of a couple days. But generally speaking, right, you're going to be well under that. So that's what those numbers came from. Keep an eye out. This was the first trickle, a little tease, because I'm putting together a handful of data points you guys are going to want to know about, and we're going to put together a white paper. So keep an eye out for that. There are going to be things like top lead sources across the nation. There'll be things like the breakdown of payment types. If you don't take credit card, take a look at the pie. You'll see that, 20 or 30% of people are taking credit card. Their payments are credit card, not the individual cleaning companies, right? Other things like growth rate, year-over-year growth rate from 2017 to 2018, broken down by state. What else do we got on there? Do you have notes?
Those are the ones that you mentioned to me.
Yeah, I think there's a couple more in there too, like commissions, what people are paying, or breaking down, and all this stuff is averaged and compiled. None of this is individualized data, right? If we started this about 5 or 6 years ago, and when I didn't have enough data to collate for a state, I just didn't do it. I either didn't include it into the report, or we just didn't do the project altogether. And so obviously that's not the case here. It's not like one guy in Maryland did all the invoices and that's where the stat came from, right? So keep a lookout for that white paper. That's very kind of a benchmarks, KPI report that will help you dial in your numbers, or at least give you a reference point, right, to map against. So,
yeah, I think what you said there is perfect. The reference point, and that's data in general. Yep. Like, there's never going to be a magic report that shows literally everything you need to do to.
Especially that lines up with your business specifically.
Exactly.
I can do that. Just report on your business. That's as close as you're going to get. Right. As soon as I throw another company in there, now all of a sudden we have to question everything. Apples to apples? Never. It's never apples to apples. So we get close, and we can certainly report on services or products, like those inventory items. But man, everybody names them a little bit different. There's no way to group them together. It's just a real pain in the ass. So,
well, that's what I see a lot when kind of on these Facebook groups, when you have this kind of side of the group saying raise your prices. Like, listen, you need to not be a bottom feeder. Like, you need to value the work that you're doing, because it's hard work.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing a good job. And then there's the other side that's like, well, you don't understand my market. It's always kind of that battle. It's like
everybody gives the same excuses. Well, my area,
right?
You don't understand my market. There's only There's only two valid setups where that statement, I feel, is meaningful. Maybe 3. So the first one's going to be transient populations. So if you live in a college town where 80% of your population's transient, they move in and out, depending on the flow of the school year. Okay, I get it. If you live in a town that heavily supports a military base, okay, I get it. Like, those are the two. And then the third one, I guess you can maybe poke at, although it's not consistent, super low populations. So if you're in your whole county, you've got 5,000 people. Okay, yeah, you got an argument. Everything else is bullshit. You're lying to yourself. You can raise prices. The sky will not fall down. Your margins will be better. Everyone's scared of it. Everyone thinks that their business will be ruined when they do it. And then after they do it and nothing changes except getting more money and higher margins, they go, dang, I wish I'd have done that a while ago. And every single person who has done it has that story. I have not heard of a single person who raised their prices and it crumbled their business. Please, feedback in the comments. If you're that one person, or you know of a story, and I don't mean anecdotally through the phone game. I mean like the individual, or you are the individual. Then let's hear the story, because I haven't heard it yet.
That's actually a really interesting kind of segue into something we're going to be talking about at the webinar.
The webinar.
Now, there's no specifics.
Nope.
Now. That's why you guys are going to attend that with the webinar. But what's one of those little?
We're raising our prices.
Exactly.
We haven't done it in 5 years.
I think it was almost 6 years when Jamie told me.
Yeah. And the pressures are getting to us, right? Google used to charge us nothing for our mapping integration. Now we're paying $7,500 a month. From nothing to $7,500 a month. Do the yearly calc on that. That's crazy. And I'm not charging you guys for it, right? So now when we say raising our prices, let's define that. What do we mean? It means October 1st, prices for Pro and Enterprise will be increasing. We'll reveal what they are there at the webinar. And again, the webinar is on October 15th or August 15th. Price increase happens October 1st. If you sign up before the prices go up, before October 1st, you will get the current pricing, and you'll be shielded from future price increases, right? I will say this, and now I'm going to get the comments in the hate mail, but here you go. After October 1st, sometime after October 1st, those clients who have been with us for more than 2 years will see a price increase eventually within the handful of months after October 1st. I don't know when the date is. I don't know what the exact amount is going to be. We're playing around with 10%. So if you've been with us for 15 years from day one and you're paying that $45 subscription, then you'll have to pay an extra $4.50. If you've been with us for 6 years, 5 years, and you're paying the $80 subscription, I'm going to charge you $8 more. Now, that increase will still not approach the new prices, right? So you'll be paying at $88. You'll be paying far less than list still. But just know, I got to cover some of these costs. Some of these costs that we built in that we never charged you for, that some of them were free to us to begin with, and others weren't, but our volume wasn't huge. Our volume's huge now. SMS, texts, email pipelines, and what we're talking about here, man, the Google stuff, I'm probably paying $12,000 a month on free services that I'm not charging for. I can't run a business like that to sustain it forever. So FYI, there you go. Send mail to jakewalski@servicemonster.net. That's my actual email address. And I would love some support too. If you're like, about damn time, I always thought you guys would send me those too. And then I'll send those to the people who say, I don't want to pay your prices. I'm like, oh, you charge $5 a room, don't you? That extra $8, like, if that means a lot to you, then, maybe you should go down to Core. It's going to be $49. Strips the crap out of ServiceMonster, makes it super simple, but it's the low cost, super slim version. So that's where we're at, guys. FYI.
And I think just internally, the discussions you've had, and like, this is not a decision that was made lightly. And I think that's same thing that they go through with the pricing. It's like, there's all those parallels,
in as much as I talk about raising prices, we've raised prices 3 times in 16 years. And we've never, not once, raised prices on our current clients. We've never, not once done that. There's a comma in there. That's not a double negative. We've never raised prices on our current clients. We will be, I would say, within the next 6 months. So again, send me the hate mail. We're also toying with maybe an opt-out. Like, if it generally creates you hardship, that $8 is going to be the maker or breaker, then send us an email and say, can't do it, and then we'll give you a reprieve. Right? We'll say, okay, fine. For the next 6 months or a year even, we won't raise the price on you. But man, you better give me some really good freaking sob story about why you don't want that $8, because otherwise I'm going to start stripping shit out. Right? If people start bitching about prices to the point, I'm like, okay, take Google out. No more mapping, no more address lookup. Like, I'll put that behind a paywall. Like, okay, I'll pay the extra $5 for that feature. That's the only other way we can do it. And I'm just not a big fan of nickel and diamond people with feature lists. We have competitors that do that and they hate it. It's like a la carte. I got to build my own software by picking all this stuff and then ending up with just tell me the damn price and give me my product.
Right.
So anyways, again, Jake Walski, ServiceMonster.net. I think
really big reason why I wanted to talk about this is just I really do think that our listeners, and I'm sure, the great amount of you that there are, appreciate the transparency and kind of understanding like, hey, it's not the same business. It's not the same business model, but every business owner has to go through this kind of stuff. So you guys aren't in it alone. You have everyone here to support you as far as that goes. Use SMUG, but raise your prices if you're curious. Or
go look at the metric, look at your average invoice, compare that with where you're at with the state with our latest blog posts. If you're there or slightly above, give yourself a high five, carry on. If you're under that, let's get that average up.
Exactly. All right.
Cool.
That's all I've got.
Awesome. Pretty short one today. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Please watch us and hear us on all of your favorite podcasts and video platforms. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, guys, be safe.
Take care.